I tried the ND75 and you should too. Why? And you should too? Well, howdy hey, I'm Hipyo and I tried over 60 keyboards this year. And in my quest to find the best budget keyboard, let's just say that this just might be. Hey, hold on. Have we done this one before? Jim, this is sounding kind of familiar here. We're gonna have a problem here. Now I know what you're thinking. This is sounding awfully familiar to the Rainy 75, which was $100 cheaper than the Zoom 75. But I'm sorry, here's a quick problem. This is the exact same price. So then which one do I buy? But that's not all, because this keyboard has 3 weird ways that you can build it entirely stock. Yeah, even the stabilizers. And oh my god, is that a screen? It's got a screen? Are you kidding me? But not only that, I'll be putting it to the test against the Rainy 75, which is the keyboard that I previously called the best keyboard under $100. I'm also gonna get a little bit unhinged and remove all of the foam. But wait, put away your wallets, because this one might require a little bit of preference. Yeah, you're gonna wanna watch this. Now, this story begins with a bit of a problem. A race to the bottom in custom keyboards. You want the best possible keyboard for the cheapest possible price, of course. Now, a few years ago, Mellitrix came out with the Zoom 75, which offered a great bang for the buck for under $200. But then a lot of people said, that's not budget. Which, okay, fair enough. And this sparked a ton of competition in the keyboard space. Everyone was trying to make a better keyboard for cheaper. But then somebody had the idea, what if they don't build the keyboard at all? Like, what if we just sell them a whole keyboard? Does anyone actually enjoy building keyboards? Well, yeah, I do, but apparently most people don't. So then came a ton of other pre-built keyboards and the Rainy 75 hit, which for $89 offered a crazy value. Now, it's important to understand how insane it was to get this much value for this little price. Like, people can hate on it and nitpick, but it's genuinely insane. But there was just one problem with that. It was a Kickstarter, and it took quite a while to fulfill. Like, by the time I made this video, I think most of the Kickstarter orders have shipped, but people are still really grumpy about it. Okay, but remember the Zoom 75 that I talked about earlier? Well, the same people that worked on that we're working on something behind the scenes. And that's where we get the Chilkey ND75 and the board we're looking at today. Okay, I get it. Hundreds of you were telling me to review it, so here it is. Now, I want this video to serve as a bit of a comparison between the ND75 and the Rainy 75. However, you should also keep your eyes open because I have 2 other keyboards I'm looking at this month that will compete for the potential title. So yeah, this is like a 4-parter. Now, you can get this board with the link down below, starting at $89 if you're okay with waiting until July. Hi, Nola. Now, there's 4 different color options for this board that are all fully built, but if you're looking to get it in stock, then you're looking at $100 on average. This does contrast pretty hard with the Rainy 75, that's $100 for the silver version, but then $140 on average for the rest of the colors. But they've told me they're gonna have the boards in stock pretty soon here. Just please read the product pages because things change pretty fast. Now, just some disclosures. Both of these keyboards were sent to me for free by their companies. I've worked with both of these companies before as sponsors, and I have the same affiliate cut for both of these companies. So with that being said, I don't care which keyboard you buy. Now, the ND75 comes with a pretty nice USB-C cable, and I swear I've seen it somewhere, so let me know where you've seen it before. A 2.4 gigahertz dongle for wireless that Nola really likes to play with. Watch this. Boo. Which is a nice contrast to the Rainy 75's really boring cable. Also, the most interesting part of the keyboard is these little squishy bloop blops, and that's going to make a whole lot more sense later because there's also some screws involved. We'll talk about that in a bit. Now, as far as color options for both boards, I do like the Rainy 75's colors a lot more. I think it's got a lot more nice pastels, and just generally, the colors are a bit more pleasing to me. Now, the ND75 has this, oh, it's so blue. Oh my. They went for more of a shiny aesthetic is really all I can say. Like, instead of pastels, it's much more bazinga. Now, this is a 75% keyboard, so you keep your F row, you keep your arrow keys, and wow, it's really hefty actually. As you might have noticed, the board is made entirely from aluminum, or aluminium if you're a British viewer. Now, my first impressions here is it's a hefty aluminum keyboard. It feels relatively premium. I mean, there's nothing here that's sticking out as incredible or groundbreaking, but I need to re-anchor my expectations because remember, this was a $100 keyboard and it was fully built with switches and keycaps and I didn't have to do any work. And I think some people in the keyboard hobby get skewed or confused because they see these $400 or $500 keyboards and they're like, why isn't this $100 keyboard like that? It's trash. So anything being not bad is already pretty good. But let's dig a little bit deeper, because the case design is a little bit imposing and a little bit pingy. Also, a personal gripe of mine, and this is just pure aesthetics, I don't really like the super high profile case where the bottom of the keycaps is hidden. Like on the Rainy 75, it sits flush with the bottom of the keycaps, and I think that just looks a lot nicer overall. But definitely the coolest feature is the screen, which we'll talk about more later. This board is supposedly gasket mounted, and the gasket performance is lackluster at best, like it feels very, very stiff. And we'll talk about the typing more later, but I would say overall it feels pretty nice to type on, like these switches feel good. Oh, that's a spoiler. Also, instead of the back Rainy motif like on the Rainy 75, they kind of just have a generic machined metal weight, which looks pretty fine, I'd say. But I was told this keyboard was wireless, so I need to know how to turn it on. Like, how do I turn it on? Maybe it's under these keycaps, I guess. Nope, but let's look at the keycaps. Now, these keycaps are double shot PBT, and they feel relatively cheap, but also fine, like a set that was maybe $20, $30 on Amazon. This means that they're gonna sound on the clackier side, so if you're looking for hyper thawk, you're gonna need some die-sub PBT keycaps or a taller profile keycap. And these switches are you guys are serious? You're gonna make me read that? Dopamine blue switches. Dopamine. Unlike the Rainy 75, there's not multiple switch options, at least that I could see, and it seems like your only choice is these dopamine blue linears. Now, thankfully, this board is hot swappable, so you can remove them and replace them with any switch that you'd like, but that's not what most of you are going to be doing if you're buying a pre-built keyboard. At a 53 gram bottom out, these are a relatively lightweight linear switch, and they are pre-lubed from the factory, albeit very well. They sound good. They feel good. Really, the only complaint here is not a lot of choice, like no silent switch or tactile switch. But moving on, you remember how I was trying to turn on this keyboard? Well, there was nothing in the manual that came with it that said how to turn it on. So my first thought was, okay, of course I'm gonna plug it in because it's a keyboard. Oh, and that worked. Of course plugging it in worked. But how do I use it wireless? Now, my first thought about the screen is that I really dislike this default home screen. Also, the RGB is incredibly dim. Like, I didn't realize this board even had RGB going until I turned off my light to go get lunch, and I came back and I was like, oh, it's kind of on. Also, these stabilizers are a little bit rattly, and we're gonna talk about that later. Now, to turn on the Rainy 75, all you do is remove caps lock, but to turn on this keyboard, I wasn't quite sure, so I had to pop it open. And no, that isn't a joke. You pop this board open, just like that. No screws, no crying, just magnets. Now, this is their screwless quick assembly system, and it works using, I think, magnets and a ball latch system or something like that. It's awesome, honestly. Like, having the ability to customize a board and open it up this quickly on a pre-built keyboard is genuinely amazing, and I love it, and I want to see this in every single keyboard in the future. Now, opening up the board, let us see the rest of it. Like this top plate that has, wait, are those screw holes? Are we able to top mount on this thing? You ready for something else cool? Watch this. I'm just gonna take this board off, and bada boop, there goes more magnets. Yeah, we got more magnets, baby. Now, I haven't gotten a lot into if this board is super great for typing or super great for sound, but this board is super great for customization so far. The ease of taking this thing entirely apart in less than 30 seconds makes it a lot better than the Rainy 75 in that respect, but none of that will hold up if the actual materials and stuff aren't that great. And the first sign of trouble starts to appear with this foam, because the foam that's pre-installed was pre-installed with a very, very sticky adhesive. I'm gonna remove this later, but first I'm gonna have to get like a sound test in, and I don't know if I'll ever get it back on. Now, in the process of taking this thing apart, I did manage to find the on and off switch. So let's go ahead and turn it on and test the wireless. Also, I'm not really sure why, but my board was wobbling a whole lot. I noticed this from the beginning, I just forgot to mention it. Now, it wobbles. If you put it on a desk mat, it doesn't wobble and it's fine, but now it's wobbling. Now, the on and off switch was below the right shift, so that was interesting to figure out. So you do have to take a keycap off every time you want to turn this board on or off, which is a bit of a bummer. That was my complaint with the Rainy 75, and they saw that people were complaining about it and they decided to still put it on there. Now, the wireless performance is fine for average use. I didn't notice any weird lag or any weird delays, but I'm not sure if it would be super great for gaming. I don't have any latency testers in my house, but I might be doing a video soon with a certain someone who does. Get subscribed, I'll be testing keyboard snake oil. We're looking at a similar battery capacity to the Rainy 75, but with the screen, who knows if it's gonna be as long. It also works via Bluetooth, but I did not test the Bluetooth at all. Now, aside from the quick disassembly, the screen is really one of the main features that sets this apart from the Rainy 75, and it's definitely cool. But what isn't cool is the software. Now, it has some hardware controls where you can turn some fun things up and down, like your volume, and have it show your brightness and blah, blah, blah. But the software just flat out sucks and feels really, really clunky and really not great to use, similar to like an Epomaker software. Now, you can use it to customize your board and rebind some keys, but it's literally nothing in comparison to VIA. So if you're a lover of good software, then the ND75 is going to be better for something like that. Like, I just kind of felt like I was bumbling throughout a circus using this software. I'm not really sure what they were thinking here. Now, later in this video, I'm going to be taking the board apart and trying it in a ton of different ways to see which way I like the best. Removing foam, different mounting styles. Yeah, I said mounting styles. But first, how does it sound entirely stock with nothing done to it? Well, the board itself sounds incredibly pleasant, aside from those stabilizers. The factory looping is just kind of and I saw a bunch of other examples where it was pretty similar. But let's compare it to the ND75, and you can leave a comment of which you think is better. Now, personally, I'm skewing a little bit towards the ND75. I think it sounds a little bit poppier, maybe a little bit more full and a tiny bit less pingy, but that's all just kind of nuancy, like they both sound like great keyboards right out of the box. But one thing you're going to experience right out of the box is the weight difference, because the ND75 is packing 300 more grams than the ND75. Now, this could be a pro or a con, depending on how you look at it. If you travel with your keyboard a lot, then the ND75 is going to be lighter. If you don't, and you want just a more substantial feeling keyboard, then the ND75 feels a little bit heavier. But I know what you want to see. You want to see the board without foams. Well, at least 10 of you do, and you're really loud about it. So even though this keyboard is really easy to open, let's actually test the customizability. If you remove foam, is it going to sound good? Is it going to sound pingy? Well, a lot of the foam is going to stick to the back of your PCB and you're going to cry about it and get really sad. Also, just so you know, I have the version of the ND75 with flex cuts in the PCB and the future versions won't. Here's the sound test. Personally, I'm not that enthralled with the no case foam sound, so I'm going to take it one step further and pry this apart with my hands. Please don't try this at home. And doing this reveals the various dampening layers. Now, I really like this plastic sheet that they put on it. This is reminiscent of my plastic wrap mod, the Hipyo mod. Personally, I would leave this one on no matter what, but then you've got the standard PE foam, which is very controversial nowadays because of those same 10 people, remember those guys? And then the plate foam that sits in between the plate and PCB. Having the various foam layers is very nice because it gives you a lot of different customization options for toying around with this thing. Now, if you remember the ND75 test, then the no foam actually sounded really good. And for this board, oh, we get quite a bit of gasket performance by removing all of the foam, which is really nice. I was missing that quite a lot. But the one thing that we don't get is what I would call a good sound, because ooh, that's really pingy. That is really pingy without all of the foams. But we haven't tried the different mounting styles yet. And I haven't even really talked about that, so let's get into it. Now with this board, you can run it with a split O-ring, a silica gel, or a top mount style. That's their words, not mine. Now the little floating O-ring style is the default config, but instead I'm gonna use these little tadpole gaskets is what I like to call them because I first saw them on the Frog TKL. And just plop them into the plate. And then I'll also be removing the O-rings because I don't want conflicting mounting styles, but maybe you could run both. Now already there's a lot more of a gasket performance here. Like you're getting a little bit more flex, and in general, I think this feels better, albeit a bit more uneven. And it's also worth noting that I did put all of the foams back in the board, so no more foamless sound tests, sorry. Now, I'm gonna be honest, I didn't notice that big of a difference between the two different gasket styles. Like, there's a little bit of a feel difference, not that much of a sound difference. I don't know, did you guys notice a difference? Let me know. The final test I wanna do is the top mount, which means that we're gonna have to screw the plate into the top of the case. This is a mounting style that goes in and out of fashion. Some people really like it, some people don't. Also, at first, I thought I could do a sandwich top mount by leaving in the little rubber gaskets, but I couldn't. I had to remove those later. I just didn't get a clip of it. Then I put the board back together and be really careful when you assemble it because you could accidentally snap your cable. Now, one thing I did notice is while using the board in top mount, it was really hard to get the board to fully close. Like I had to use a lot of force and kind of realign some things, but eventually I got it to work. And I think this is a really cool feature that you can build the board in a couple of different ways, and it only took around 15 minutes to try all of them. But how does it sound? Well, overall, I think it sounds a little bit more full in top mount, and I do think that this is actually my preferred style. Like, it's more stiff, but it also just feels more solid. Now you're probably wondering, Hipyo, I watched this whole video and now I'm even more confused. I don't know which keyboard to buy, the ND75, the Rainy 75, the two other mystery keyboards that you're looking at later this month. Well, and this is where it comes down to preference. Now, from my personal preference, I enjoy the Rainy 75 more. However, the Rainy 75 that I enjoy more costs $39 more. And when you compare the $99 Rainy 75 to the $99 ND75, that's where it becomes quite a lot harder to make the decision. Now, I'll have both of them linked down below so you can make the decision for yourself, but let me give you some things to think about. As of making this video, both of the keyboards have some degree of wait time, but they also both plan on being in stock. The Rainy 75, to me, sounds significantly better without foam. However, they both sound great with foams. The ND75 is way easier to take apart and mod, so you could have more fun with it if you're someone that likes to tinker. However, if you're someone that likes to tinker, then you might prefer the better software support of the Rainy 75 because it has VIA instead of some random Now, there's probably a million other things that I missed, but these are just some of the things that I care about the most. Other than that, a lot of the features are the same, and you genuinely can't go wrong with either. Now, at the end of the day, they're both still budget keyboards, so they still have their quirks. I'm just being a lot more lenient because they're $100. But anyways, they're both cool, go subscribe. Or better yet, do you want $5 off a keyboard?
Hey, come on down to the Boardwalk. We got keyboards over here.
Boardwalk is my brand new, incredibly sleek keyboard marketplace where you can buy, sell, and chat about keyboards. Now, this is absolutely fantastic if you want a new keyboard, because if you use the link in the description, you'll get $5 off your first order. But also, I've seen your closet. You have a lot of stuff laying around that I think you'd like to get rid of in order to fund other things, like college. But that's not all. Because I'm working with District, we're also able to provide full buyer and seller protection. So if something goes wrong, we swoop in and save the day. I think it's a super great alternative to stuff like Mech Market because not only is it safer, it's also way easier to use as a buyer and a seller. Oh, but also if you sign up, then you can get your own referral link and give a friend $5 and get $5 off of their first order. So for more info on Boardwalk and the giveaway, click that link down below because it ends in 7 days.